Hello and welcome to my video. My name is Josh and today we're going to be talking about fire. Fire! This video essay is for my English and Composition class at the University of Arkansas, and if by chance you've stumbled upon this video from my other survival tutorials.
Here we have a naturally occurring food container. Now this one unfortunately is empty. Oh yes. Here we appear to have found a naturally occurring fire pit. That is very convenient because we will need to build a fire in order to survive the night.
Or my outdoor living videos.
Bigfoot is real! He's real!
Then you might be very confused this video because we're going to actually be informative for once and actually provide some good instruction and information, hopefully. During this video, we're going to talk about important safety considerations when building a fire, why you might want to build a fire, what fire kind of is, and at the end of the video, I'm actually going to take you guys out to the field and we're going to build a fire together. I'm going to take you along and show you kind of the thought process and some of the different ways people start fires on their own. It's going to be fun, hopefully. But before we talk about the fun parts of fire, we need to talk about the important safety things of fire. There's a lot of ways you could potentially die from fires or kill other people. So first and most obviously, you could get burned. Fire burns very hot. Don't burn yourself with the fire. Don't touch anything that's been near the fire. Definitely don't light a fire if there's a burn ban, because you could start a forest fire and kill your entire town.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Kill me, please.
Barring those obvious safety considerations that I would hope I don't actually need to tell you about for you to not do, there's some safety considerations you might not think about. Like, for example, when cooking your food, you need to make sure that you're not touching anything that was too close to the fire. Your tools, if they get too close to the fire, they could burn you. Speaking of tools, you're way more likely to get injured while preparing your firewood than you are during your fire if you're practicing good fire safety. Most people are very aware of the dangers of fire, but maybe you're being too careless with your axe and you could cut yourself, and that's a way more life-threatening injury if you aren't prepared for it. So be safe with where you build your fires. Be safe with when you build your fires. There's no bans. Be safe around your fire, not touching it or letting it touch you. And definitely be safe with your tools and equipment while preparing your fire. So now that we've talked about some of the safety stuff, let's talk about why you might want to build a fire or why you might not. Building a fire can be a very rewarding and very fun experience. It's a great way to learn about outdoor living skills. A lot of the outdoor skills you need to learn as a survivalist or bushcrafter or just an avid camper depend on having that campfire for making things, for cooking your food, boiling your water, and especially making your coffee. Let's talk about some situations where you might need to build a fire. If you're in a survival situation and you don't have a good way to warm yourself, sometimes a fire could be your only real option to survive the night if it's going to be too cold. Sometimes a fire could be your only way to get water. Sometimes in the field, you just can't have access to clean water all the time, or if you're going to be out for an extended period of time, you need a way to get more clean water safely. Another thing people don't really talk about very much, in a survival situation, a fire could also be a really good morale booster. And that's very important. It never gets talked about by survivalists, especially not anyone on TV or anything. I've heard survival experts say that even if you don't need to build a fire to survive, you still should, because it's such a morale booster, and your mental state is every bit as important as your physical state in a survival situation. So now that we've talked a little bit about safety, why you might want to build a fire, let's talk about let's talk about what fire is exactly. Very simply, we're just turning fuel into heat. We're taking a fuel source, combining it with oxygen and heat, which produces more heat to keep the reaction going, leaves off exhaust, which is your smoke, and as long as you have fuel and heat and oxygen to keep the reaction going, it's going to keep on going. We're taking that energy from the inside of the wood, the fuel, whatever the fuel is, and releasing it as heat to warm ourselves or our food. There's a lot more complicated things going on chemically under the hood, but that's really all we need. That's all the important things that matter to us as campers or survivalists. So that's what fire is at a very basic level. But we can take those ideas and make a more usable idea of fire for our purposes of building fire for camping. If we took those fundamental elements of fuel, oxygen, and heat, those are the three important elements of a fire. That's really all we need to be considerate of and be aware of in the field, because that's all we need to create fire. If we have those three things, we'll have fire. If we don't have any one of those three things, we won't have fire. And it's as simple as that. Also, in the middle of the triangle, I should put dry. That's very important. Fire does not like moisture. So all along this process, especially our young fire, a big fire doesn't care too much about moisture. But when we're getting our fire started, moisture is the enemy. We want it to be as dry as possible to give our fire the best chance of starting. So during the whole fire making process, remember those three pillars: oxygen, fuel, and heat. Those are our three fundamental things we need to make a good, healthy fire. Fire! Fire! All right, here we are in the field. Well, I say field, this is a pretty controlled environment. I've got a table and a fire ring to show you some of the stuff today, more visibly and a lot more safely than we would be out in the actual field. This is a place I come to a lot to practice my own fire building skills. And it's really cold today. It's like 20 out here, which is ridiculous. It was like 70 yesterday, Arkansas. But anyway, so I really need a fire to warm myself up and get some coffee to warm my insides. Hey, Josh from the future here. This part of the video ended up being way too long, so I had to cut a lot of it. I wanted it to be more informative, but in the interest of time, I'm going to go for more of a show rather than tell approach. If anyone is interested in like a more detailed breakdown, let me know and maybe we can do a future video about it. So here first, you'll see me collecting some firewood. I'm basically looking for anything that's dead and off the ground. I end up going with this tree here because it's pretty high and dry, and we'll take it back to camp to process it. So here you'll see me processing the wood with an axe, and I'm using a very safe technique where I seat the axe head into the wood first and then smack the axe and the wood together. So here you can see our fuel wood. You'll notice they start off very small, like say the thickness of a toothpick, and you'll see we increase the thickness of our fuel as the fire grows. And to clear out all these leaves and fungus. Here you'll see me building kind of a raft for the fire. This actually does a few things, but first and most importantly, it gets us off of the wet dirt floor of the fire pit. Remember, moisture is the enemy of our young fire. It'll also give us a little bit of elevation to allow some oxygen to get to the fire from underneath it, which is the same reason you see me put a big log across from me to give us some elevation for oxygen to get to the fuel wood. Here you'll see me place some kindling, which is just a mixture of dead grass and cedar bark. And this is just to get our small flame into a bigger flame so we can start catching our smallest fuel wood. Now all we need is a little flat surface for our fat wood. Fat wood is just pine wood with a high resin content, and you'll see me use shavings to get a flame going from the sparks from my ferro rod. If anyone's curious about what fat wood is or how to get it, let me know and I can make a future video about it. Go. You'll notice I'm putting the small fuel wood above the flame to try and get as much heat into it as possible, dry it as much as possible. It appears the bark we have is kind of wet, I think. Sometimes, if your fire is struggling, it's not a bad idea to introduce some more oxygen just by blowing on it. Your own 2 lungs are one of your most valuable tools to getting your fire going. Now the second one fuel wood starts to take, you need to get your next fuel wood stacked and ready on top of it. Alright, this fire should be self-sustaining now, which means it's time for the most important step. There we go. And that means it's time for the most important step, coffee. Oh, it smells good. Well, I hope. Oh my goodness. Oh, why? No matter where you sit around the fire. Well, I hope you've learned something today. I hope you've had fun building a fire with me, and hopefully learning a thing or two. If not, I hope you had fun anyways.